What happens when an undercover boss visits his hotel and is speechless when a housekeeper begs for a break? Let's dive to see. For years, Robert Grayson had poured his heart into building a chain of hotels. He started small, working tirelessly to make sure every guest felt welcome and cared for. His hard work paid off. 12 hotels now stretched across the country, each one bustling with activity. But lately, something didn't feel right. Reviews were dropping, complaints piling up, and anonymous emails from employees hinted at deeper problems. One email stood out: "If you care about this company, come see how we're treated." Robert knew he couldn't ignore it anymore. It was time to find out what was really going on behind the scenes. So one morning, dressed in a worn-out uniform, glasses perched low on his nose, and sporting a fake beard, Robert walked into one of his own hotels as Ben, a new housekeeping trainee. No one recognized him. To them, he was just another guy trying to keep up with the endless demands of the job. His trainer for the day was Marcus, a seasoned housekeeper in his late 40s. Marcus greeted Ben warmly despite the exhaustion etched into his face. "All right, Ben, let's get moving. We've got 16 rooms to clean before noon." 16 rooms? Robert had expected hard work, but nothing like this. By the second room, his arms already ached from scrubbing bathtubs and making beds. Meanwhile, Marcus worked twice as fast, barely pausing to catch his breath. By the 10th room, sweat dripped down Robert's back. He glanced at Marcus, who looked pale and unsteady. "Marcus, are you okay?" he asked, concern lacing his voice. Marcus wiped his forehead and gave a weak laugh. "I'm fine, just dizzy. Haven't had a break all morning." Robert frowned. "Aren't we supposed to get breaks?" "Supposed to," Marcus sighed. "But if we stop, we fall behind, and if we fall behind..." Before Marcus could finish, their manager, Todd, stormed into the hallway. "Why are you two just standing there? Get moving!" Marcus flinched, and Robert clenched his jaw. "Marcus has been working non-stop," he said firmly. "He needs a break." Todd scoffed. "A break? You think this is a vacation? If he can't handle it, he can leave." Marcus lowered his gaze and mumbled, "I can't afford to leave." Robert's stomach twisted. This wasn't just bad management, it was exploitation. He wanted to reveal himself right then and there, but he held back. There was more to uncover. As the day dragged on, Robert saw countless examples of mistreatment. Housekeepers rushed so much, they barely had time to clean properly. Some whispered about being forced to clock out early while still finishing their tasks. Another admitted that Todd frequently insulted them, calling them lazy if they dared to slow down. By the end of the shift, Robert was exhausted and disgusted. He realized his company wasn't providing quality jobs or service. It was pushing people to their limits while managers abused their power. The next morning, Robert returned for his second day of training. Marcus wasn't there. Another housekeeper, Daniel, muttered that Marcus had called in sick. "He never calls in," Daniel whispered as they pushed their cleaning carts down the hall. "I think yesterday finally caught up with him." Robert felt a pang of guilt. Marcus had been on the verge of collapse, yet he kept going out of fear of losing his job. No one should have to work under those conditions. Throughout the day, Robert observed more than just physical exhaustion. He noticed how employees avoided eye contact with Todd, how they flinched when he barked orders, and how they spoke in hushed tones in the break room, afraid of being overheard. At one point, Robert overheard a conversation between Todd and another manager near the supply closet. "I don't care if they're tired," Todd said. "They should be grateful they even have jobs. If they complain, I'll replace them." Robert's anger simmered. That evening, he left the hotel with his body aching and his mind racing. He knew there was a serious problem, but he needed more evidence. Was this just one bad manager, or was it a systemic issue? The next morning, Robert walked into the building not as Ben the trainee, but as Robert Grayson, CEO of the entire company. The transformation was immediate. Employees who had ignored him the past 2 days now stood at attention. Todd, who had spent the last 2 shifts barking orders, went pale. Robert wasted no time. He called an emergency staff meeting. Standing in front of the gathered employees, he announced, "I went undercover in this hotel for the past 2 days. I saw everything." A ripple of shock moved through the room. "I saw how overworked and underappreciated you all are. I saw how managers treat you with disrespect. I saw the fear, the exhaustion, the frustration, and let me be clear, this is unacceptable. Turning his gaze to Todd, Robert continued, "You've spent years mistreating these employees, cutting corners, ignoring their needs. You've created a toxic work environment that drives good people to their breaking point." He paused, letting the words sink in. "You're fired." A gasp went through the room. Todd's face turned red, but Robert cut him off before he could argue. Security escorted Todd out, and the tension in the air began to lift. Robert turned back to the employees. "Things are going to change." For the next hour, he listened intently as employees shared their concerns. Housekeepers explained how impossible their workload was. Front desk staff talked about constant understaffing. Servers described how they were expected to skip breaks. Robert took notes, nodded, and asked questions, making sure they knew he was serious. By the end of the meeting, he had a plan. Effective immediately, staffing would increase, housekeepers would have reasonable quotas, and breaks would be mandatory. Pay raises would be implemented over the next few months, and most importantly, an anonymous reporting system would be put in place so employees could report mistreatment without fear of retaliation. Over the following weeks, Robert worked tirelessly to transform the culture of the hotel. He hired additional staff, reviewed salaries to ensure fair compensation, and personally interviewed potential managers. He chose Victor Hayes, a former hotel manager known for prioritizing employee well-being while maintaining high standards. Victor stepped into the role with energy and empathy. He walked the floors, talked to staff daily, and addressed concerns before they became bigger issues. Slowly but surely, morale improved. Employees no longer moved with their heads down, rushing in fear of reprimand. They walked with confidence, knowing they had the support they needed to do their jobs well. One afternoon, Robert passed by the break room and saw Marcus sitting at a table laughing with a few coworkers. He looked better, more rested, more at ease. When Marcus saw Robert, he gave him a grateful smile. "Things are different now," he said, in a good way. Robert felt a deep sense of satisfaction. For the first time in a long time, he knew his company was finally becoming what he had always intended it to be, a place where people mattered. 2 months later, Robert launched a full internal audit of every hotel in the chain. Employee surveys, anonymous reports, and surprise visits revealed similar issues at other locations. Bad managers were removed, policies were enforced, and new leadership was put in place. The biggest change wasn't in policy, it was in culture. Employees across the company began to feel secure, knowing they had a voice that was being heard. 6 months after his undercover experience, the company was stronger than ever. Employee retention hit an all-time high, customer satisfaction soared, and revenue increased, not because corners were cut, but because the hotels were delivering the quality service they had always promised. One evening, Robert sat in the familiar break room of the original hotel, chatting casually with Marcus, Daniel, and a few others during their break. "You really shook things up," Daniel said, taking a sip of coffee. Robert chuckled. "I had to. I let things slip too far without realizing it." Marcus tilted his head. "Most bosses wouldn't have bothered. They would have just fired a few people and moved on." Robert met Marcus's gaze. Most bosses are doing it wrong. As Robert walked through the hotel that night, he no longer saw a place struggling under mismanagement. He saw a company that had found its way back to what truly mattered, treating people with respect and dignity. That's the story, friends. I hope you enjoyed it. It was a pleasure sharing it with you all. Don't forget to comment below and let me know where you're watching from. It's always fun to see the global reach of these stories. And if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button for more amazing stories, tips, and tricks. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye. If you'd like to show some extra love, tap the 3 dots near the share button and send a super thanks.